I wasn't always this pathetic, but with one unfortunate event leading to another, I'm currently living like a dog, begging my toxic wife to have some mercy and please divorce me. But in order for the divorce to take place, this goddess of gaslighting is demanding something far beyond of my current abilities. Even before marriage, my life was not exactly a path of roses. He had a drunken father who had long since lost himself in alcohol and gambling. Instead of supporting me, he forced me to pay for his addictions. I would have loved to have moved on and left my drunk dad alone, but he was the only family I had left. My mother was already raising daisies. With no other choice, I had to take all kinds of weird jobs just to make ends meet. Sometimes I wished that my circumstances were as good as those of the people around me. Still, I did not lose hope and clung to the idea that my father would come to his senses one day. I even handed over a large amount of money to him once just because I wanted to buy some cryptocurrency. But that lucky day when my father changed never came, and his addictions dragged him to his grave, leaving me completely alone. Although it was devastating to lose both of my parents, part of me was relieved to know that I was finally free. After getting over my father's death, I just started living a normal life. Fast forward a few years now with me finally free from my toxic wife. One day, while watching TV, I saw two cryptocurrency gurus talking about a new currency called Bitcoin, whose value had exploded exponentially, increasing to 500 times in a short period. It turns out that it was the same coin that my father had begged me to invest in before he died. To verify it, I quickly opened the cryptocurrency exchange app, only to be dumbfounded to see 25 billion won in Bitcoin, sitting in my wallet ready to spend. From that moment on, I became obsessed, constantly checking my wallet for every little spike on the chart. Honestly, having a digital currency that could disappear at any second made me feel incredibly anxious. That's why I'd been working all night, staring at the charts in a panic. Sometimes the currency went up, sometimes it went down, which made the whole experience unbearable. Similarly, one day I came home after a casual bike ride, opened my wallet, and almost fainted. Not because I lost money, but because the values of my coins had gained another 20 million wons, raising my portfolio by almost 2,000 million wons. In the days that followed, I returned to my job. Recently, my company had been conducting demonstrations with surgical equipment that we had delivered the previous week to different facilities across the country. The team sent to Bizen was not doing very well, so the president wanted to send someone more capable. With my tired eyes and no sleep, I raised my hand to volunteer for the trip. I didn't do it because of seniority, but because I hadn't slept well in years, and I thought maybe a trip would help me clear my head. The president agreed, but I wanted someone else to accompany me. That's when the most attractive woman in our office volunteered to join me. You might think I was a lucky guy, and believe me, my coworkers felt the same. Some even begged to take my place on the trip, but the president turned them down as only 2 people were needed. By the way, his name was Soa. Speaking of names, I think I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Kim. In the days that followed, I finally had the opportunity to travel alongside the beauty of the office. On the way, she mentioned that the car we were in was hers. He had bought it from his brother last year. I also knew that she was genuinely excited to visit Bizen, not because of the job, but because it was her hometown. She said she used to visit a lot, but her workload had kept her away. Watching her enjoy some free time made me realize something profound. Everyone in this world has a little world of their own built from their dreams, ambitions, and little things that bring them peace. That made me wonder what kind of world I should be living in with all the money in my pocket but no peace in my heart. As the day slowly turned into dusk, we took a short break to relax. At that moment, she asked me to accompany her to a department store. She said she wanted to go shopping now that we were in Bizen. There was also something he wanted to tell me. At that moment, I didn't think much about it or question his intentions, so I accepted immediately. But during shopping later that day, I noticed something strange. If we bought online, we would get things much cheaper. So, why were we here? Things got even weirder when she asked me to pick out a suit for me and said she would pay. When I asked curiously why, she blushed and admitted that she needed a favor. After I pressed her, she finally confessed. She wanted him to pretend to be her boyfriend in front of her parents. Well, I was stunned. She went on to explain that her parents expected her to be in a relationship as her younger sister was already dating someone. At that moment, my heart started beating hard, and I felt butterflies in my stomach. Finally, I met her parents at a fancy restaurant. I'm not going to lie. They were quite chatty, talking nonstop about how perfect their daughter was. But honestly, I was on cloud 9 too, enjoying every moment. For a divorced man like me, even pretending to be someone's boyfriend made my heart skip a beat. Since his parents knew that we worked at the same company, they naturally asked how we had become close. Of course, I had to make up some bullshit story to make it sound convincing. Seeing how warmly Suba's parents treated me reminded me of the last miserable encounter I had with my real in-laws. Those people were just as heinous as her daughter. His cold and cruel words still live free in my head to this day. Long story short, I did my best to earn them, but it was a lost cause. By comparison, Suba's parents felt like angels in human form. But, fortunately, I am no longer a married man. After that memorable night, his parents finally decided to say goodbye to us. They lovingly told their daughter to enjoy her date with me. As it was all just an act, Suba was clearly embarrassed, which made it equally embarrassing for me. I think I just feel insecure about a girl of her caliber being around me. Once we were alone at the beach, she apologized to me for dragging me into a mess that I never signed up for. During the meeting, his keen senses had detected my restlessness, which he suspected was caused by the bad memories that this role-playing had triggered. I was genuinely surprised that she was worried about my divorce situation. So I quickly assured him not to worry about me. In fact, I really enjoyed the company of his parents, not to mention that the free meal I ate was the icing on the cake of the whole experience. To distract her from the topic, I suggested that she show me the area, since it was the first time she was visiting. They abuse. My sudden request clearly gave him a lot to think about. I realized that I was trying my best to find the perfect place that would make my time worthwhile. Finally, he pointed towards a fortune teller's camp, much to my bewilderment. After all, I was hoping for some kind of place, unique, memorable place in the city. However, we got in, and just like any crystal ball hustler, the old hag behind the table managed to win over Swa with her barn and effect tactics. Among all those generic details, the witch also mentioned how Swa had recently squandered an opportunity. At that moment, I was not sure where this old hag was going, but apparently, she was talking about Swa missed the opportunity to confess her feelings to me. The old witch assured Swa that she would soon have another chance to take advantage of the opportunity she had just passed up, and advised her to take it this time. While Swa was busy buying the old hag's nonsense, I wasn't even paying attention. For me, fortune-telling is nothing more than a scam. Anyway, it was finally my turn to have my future guest. Although he was reluctant, Sub insisted that my future be revealed to me as well, just to make our visit worthwhile. And just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, the old hag really managed to strike a chord with me. That woman somehow knew that my upbringing was not all sunshine and roses, and that I had grown up poor. He continued to surprise me by stating that people like me are destined to amass wealth. He said it was just the beginning, and that my luck would continue to shine brightly. He advised me to travel the world and accumulate new experiences along the way. Only then, he said, would he attract even more promising opportunities. All I had to do was live my life to the fullest, and opportunities would come rushing at me. Whether it was love or wealth, he said, he could achieve anything he wanted. Her words gave me a lot to think about, and my worries about my unused savings only got stronger. I didn't understand half of what he said, but it was nice to hear something positive for a change. Unfortunately, that brief happiness vanished the moment the old hag demanded 200,001 for the vague rubbish she had just told me. It felt as if the value of a whole month's worth of shopping and bus fare had gone straight down the drain. Fortunately, we managed to get out of the place before they ripped us off even more. The next place I went up I had in mind was the Hyundai market, where I wanted to buy grill deal. Meanwhile, I was still thinking about the idle money sitting in my account, wondering if money could really buy happiness. I hadn't figured out the answer yet, but I didn't dwell on it for long. The moment itself was too pleasant to be ruined by so much thinking. Just like that, our 4-day business trip in Bizen finally came to a bittersweet end, and we returned to Seoul. When I got home and checked my wallet, I was surprised to see that 200 million had disappeared. But the veil of regret was quickly lifted when I got 300,000 back in just 1 hour. Then, he went up another 100,000. Once again, I found myself staring at the screen all day like an idiot, watching the graphics bounce up and down. I was literally losing my mind with all the stress eating away at me. No matter how consumed I was with money, I still had to show up at the office. There, I overheard some coworkers chatting about unpredictable real estate increases. That had helped one of them make a massive 300,000 profit, but I wasn't paying much attention. These guys were small fish compared to me. Just last night, I had reached the 40,000 mark, which made me feel like a level 100 mafia boss, surrounded by level 1 newbies. Soon, her conversation turned to me, full of envy for my trip to Bizen with that office beauty. I tried to dodge their taunts and change the subject, but they were persistent. Finally, one of them redirected the conversation, talking to the team leader about how some stocks were growing too slowly lately. They mentioned rumors that now everyone was flocking to buy Bitcoin. The value of this coin had skyrocketed in months, and anyone who kept it had multiplied their wealth by 8. The rumor suggested that he had enormous future potential. So, naturally, everyone decided to buy some for themselves. Meanwhile, I was just listening to those guys in silence, absolutely losing my mind at the idea that I was going to get even richer. But the reality had something more reserved. When I got home and checked the price of the currency, it had already plummeted more than 15%. If my calculations were correct, I had lost 6 billion in the blink of an eye. I literally felt like life was slipping out of my eyes. Even the next day at work, the only thing that was spinning in my head was that huge loss that I had to swallow. To put it in perspective, that money was basically 45 years' salary. To avoid taking more hits, I started contemplating selling the coins and just getting over it. I mean, I still had 34 pesos left, which was more than enough to last me a lifetime. But just when I was about to sell everything and finally breathe freely, my nosy coworkers interrupted me and started questioning me about my bored mood. While I was trying to hide my inner confusion, they noticed the cryptocurrency exchange app open on my phone. It didn't take long for them to realize that I was also into cryptocurrencies. They started asking me how much I had invested, and I simply said 34. But I didn't tell them what was coming after that. Millions or billions. That information had to stay with me if I wanted to avoid unwanted attentions. And fortunately, it worked. I also told them the reason for my gloomy face. It was due to the fall that happened yesterday. My coworkers looked at each other and smiled, which instantly confused me. That confusion turned into shock when I was shown the current price of the currency, which had already recovered after yesterday's fall. Those guys were kind enough to cheer me up, assuring me that the real surge hadn't even started yet. Listening to them talk so confidently about the currency, I fell into a dilemma again. Should I keep it a little longer? Maybe I was being greedy, but whatever the case, it paid off big time. The next day, Bitcoin experienced another historic breakout. The price more than doubled, becoming a worldwide sensation. With that massive increase came a massive expansion in my portfolio. Suddenly, I was sitting at 100 billion won. And just like any normal person would, My balls literally went up my throat in pure shock, and my heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. After I managed to calm down, I made a rational decision to withdraw the money and be done with it. But once again, greed appeared and left me hanging. That greed inside me felt like it had taken shape, whispering in my ear to hold on just a little longer. But then I realized something. Maybe it was the fruit of my father's hard work, the same man who once begged me to lend him money. With that thought, I knew exactly what I had to do next. I couldn't just let the fruit of that struggle go to waste. The next day, Subin noticed my absence at the office. The first thing that crossed his mind was that maybe I had gone on another business trip. When he tried to confirm it with our co-workers, he found out that I was actually taking a personal day. Free staff. Naturally, that confused her. I was a nobody with nothing important in my life, so his confusion was justified. She was just hoping he would be okay. Contrary to what she imagined, she was actually casually shopping at a nearby Ferrari showroom. Of all the cars lined up, the one that instantly caught my eye was the Ferrari 458 Italia. As part of his job, the salesman started reciting specifications and features, but I didn't mind that at all. I was just interested in how he looked. So instead of listening to his endless sales pitch, I shut him up with my Platinum MasterCard, with the intention of paying the full amount right there. You might be wondering how I was casually buying a Ferrari. Well, to tell you the truth, I followed the path that my father had paved for me. I sold all my coins. In US dollars, it was worth 100 million, approximately 100 million in hand. With all that money sitting there waiting to be spent, I had no idea what else to do. So yeah, that's how I ended up buying a Ferrari. Once the transaction was completed, I walked out of the showroom like a total chat who doesn't give a damn. But deep down, I was on the verge of a heart attack. The car I had just bought was worth 4,900,000 won. To give you some perspective on how crazy that is, just remember when I was sweating my ass off for overpaying that divine 200,001. Nevertheless, I gave it my all by ticking every box on my wish list. With a luxury car and a fancy suit secured, the next thing on my to-do list was to find myself a nice luxury apartment. So without hesitation, I stopped inside the best housing complex there is in my city. I didn't even think twice before asking the receptionist to show me the best apartment available here. The receptionist finally gave me a tour of one of the most expensive apartments available. For a moment, buying such a luxurious place made me feel out of place. I was not used to this kind of lifestyle. The apartments were too luxurious for my taste. The bathrooms were only bigger than my old house. And as for the view from that high-rise apartment, it was unlike anything I had ever seen in my life. In an instant, I made a decision and proceeded with the transaction. There were a lot of things I had to give up in my life because of my miserable financial situation. But now, with all the money in the world, I didn't need to hold back anymore. Not only did I buy my apartment, but I paid the full amount of the lease in one go. It was one of the items on my personal to-do list. When I put the entire payment on the table, the surprised expressions of the receptionists made every penny worth it. Let's not forget Suba. While two co-workers were getting very friendly in the office and were about to kiss, Suba barged in and started demanding to know where she lived. Her intense gaze scared them both, making them wonder why I was so desperate to find out where I was staying. As you may have already guessed, she was only worried about me since I had been absent from work that day. She thought he was sick and wanted to check on him. His sudden request made the coworker wonder if it was normal for one colleague to care so much about another. Either way, he didn't know where I lived, so he politely declined and promised to text me instead. As expected, I received their message a little later, and I was surprised that they suddenly wanted to visit me. When I realized that I had worried them unnecessarily, I apologized and sent my address. Swal was grateful to Junjo for getting my address for her. Given how excited she looked, Jook began to suspect that she might actually be in love with me. Finally, both decided to visit me together. They were genuinely curious to see what kind of place he lived in, and they were looking forward to it. But the moment they arrived, they were shocked. You might think they were dazzled by the luxurious new apartment I had bought, but in reality, I had called them to my old place, a basement apartment full of dirt and crawling bugs. I was in the middle of packing up my things to move. I could tell that Sunjap was particularly disgusted by the state of the place, but Suba felt something completely different. Seeing that cramped and cluttered apartment was the first time he really realized how bad some living conditions could be. He felt sorry for me at that time, living alone here after a divorce. As I was moving, both coworkers kindly offered to help me pack and carry my things. I didn't want them to get dirty handling my stuff, but despite my insistence, they helped anyway. Outside, in the parking lot, his eyes suddenly turned to a Ferrari parked in that third-rate lot. Naturally, they were confused. Neither of us could even imagine that the car could belong to me. They just assumed it belonged to the building owner or something. But the reality was far from what they thought. Their brains practically froze the moment I told them to load my stuff in that car. They still refused to believe it, thinking that he was just standing near someone else's Ferrari. But when I confirmed that it was mine, it turned into a moment of total amazement for them. Meanwhile, I could tell that Sunjap was doing the mental calculations, figuring out my salary, possible dues and other costs, and none of it made sense to him, but that was just the beginning of his surprises. This time, I wanted to show them my new apartment, and they quickly agreed to accompany me. Although when inviting you both, I forgot to take into account a small detail. My new car could only accommodate 2 people, so I asked one of them to come separately. At first, Soa volunteered to travel alone, but John Jab took a step back and let her go with me. I could tell that the poor guy was crying inside for missing the opportunity to ride in a Ferrari. As it was Soa's first time in a luxury car, she was naturally anxious. Traveling with her reminded me of our last trip together, which in turn reminded me of her parents. When I brought up the subject of her parents, she admitted that they expected her to marry me sooner or later. Of course, I refused to continue with that husband farce. At that moment, he turned to me with a serious look. He wanted to ask something important, but his voice trailed off. When I asked her again, it became clear that she didn't feel comfortable asking such a sensitive question, so she kept it to herself. If I had to guess, I probably wanted to ask about my divorce, how and why it happened. Although, honestly, at that time I did not give much importance to it. I just assumed I had. Curious about my sudden wealth. Either way, he was grateful that both she and Sun Jab were minding their own business. Elsewhere, my ex-wife was on a phone call, holding our old wedding photo in her hands. Behind my back, he was probably up to something. Not that I knew what it was. I was too busy enjoying my new life. In the following days, John Jab was also able to enjoy the Ferrari. That's when he suddenly asked me an unexpected question out of the blue. I wanted to know how he saw Sogwa. I really didn't like the question my colleague asked, but since we were hanging out together, I decided to answer her question and describe Swa in the best possible way. For me, she was a kind and capable woman who knows how to take care of the people around her. I was very happy to be able to work with a person like her. Surprisingly, my answer was not enough for John Job, and he wanted me to say more. I already knew where I was going with this question, so I decided to close the topic. When we got back to the office, the other colleagues were surprised to learn that I had a Ferrari. When they asked how I managed to earn so much even though I bought Bitcoin quite late, I simply gave them a convincing lie, claiming that I had reinvested the profits over and over again. Those guys were instantly dismayed to realize how much he had accomplished with that coin. After all, both of them had already lost 40% of their money in the recent fall. Good for me. I sold it early, long before the catastrophe happened. My colleagues, however, mistook my crazy luck for some kind of impeccable commercial genius that I supposedly possessed. They wanted me to become their crypto guru and teach them the tricks of the trade. Between the three of us, only I knew they were barking up the wrong tree. To detract from the importance, I just blurted out some random nonsense. Just one line, heart of a beast. They both took my words too seriously and started decoding the meaning behind them. I couldn't force myself to lie so blatantly, so I decided to stay quiet. Fortunately, I didn't have to say anything, because one of them assumed that what I said meant having a great mindset. Anyway, I let him live with whatever interpretation he liked. They kept asking me about my financial success and started to assume that I might have been exploring more businesses. I just went with the flow, nodding to everything they could think of. Although I also told them a little truth, I actually reinvested in several other currencies because my instincts told me that there was still room for that cryptocurrencies would grow. Before suggesting some coins to you, I made it very clear that I would not be responsible for anything. It was his decision to take the risk. Finally, I told you about Excerpt and Ethereum, the two currencies with the most potential. As expected, both co-workers showed themselves. They were skeptical, as they were relatively new currencies at that time. So I had to step in and explain everything. The main purpose of Excerpt was to support internal banking transactions, while Ethereum aimed to use blockchain technology to enable various types of transactions. Of course, that did not guarantee a price increase, but compared to other currencies, these two were bound to attract a lot of attention from investors due to their relatively low risk. The guys were actually surprised that I possessed such a deep and important knowledge. Usual, but it shouldn't have been so surprising. After all, I put my entire fortune on the line. While I was busy showing off my supposed knowledge, Swa was cooling off in the bathroom. His mind was mainly occupied with work, although the next thing on his mind was me. Then some girls joined her in the bathroom, gossiping about the Ferrari she had recently bought. As they could not believe that he really had so much wealth, rumors began to spread that he had bought the car with borrowed money and was now buried in debt. Not only that, there were also nasty rumors that I had gotten into gambling and drinking. While those girls kept spreading lies about me, Soa kept listening in silence until she reached her breaking point. To clear my name, he confronted them and demanded to know who had started these rumors. Not long after, someone familiar entered the office, immediately capturing everyone's attention. She was a woman, and a beautiful one at that. He went directly to the counter and asked the team leader about my whereabouts. The team leader was not very helpful. He intentionally hid the truth and lied that he was out. But by my bad luck, I stopped by the office at that very moment with a big pile of conference documents. The woman recognized my voice and turned to me. As soon as he helped me hold the boxes, I thanked him, only to retrieve them immediately. That woman was none other than my ex-wife. Yes, the same bitch who had already traumatized me enough. The moment I saw his face, my mind went back to the past, remembering every time he treated me like garbage. Even during our honeymoon, he confronted me and belittled me for not booking the best hotel for our stay. She was a woman with a PhD in psychological manipulation, while I was just a simple guy with direct thoughts. Her insults, her psychological manipulation, and the way she constantly made me feel insecure still. They resonate in my head. And now seeing her right in front of me, I didn't even want to make eye contact. But since I was working in the same office as my partner, it became my duty to respond, albeit reluctantly. After taking the boxes down, I reluctantly took the files I wanted to deliver. I didn't flinch, let alone feel intimidated by his presence. After taking the files, I confidently walked past her, which only made her angrier. His anger was obvious. I was furious that he wasn't acting like the scared loser he used to be. Oh, I think I forgot to mention his name. This is Ank1. I was upset because I showed up in a Ferrari at work. How wild he was. I know. True. This guy is now regretting divorcing me. If he had known he was going to end up filthy rich, he would have held on to that marriage a little longer. But since she can't gain anything by crying over spilled milk now, she decided to completely sink me. As soon as she walked into the office, she put on that fake innocent bitch face, acting like a poor victim devastated by the divorce. Her toxic friends surrounded her, trying to comfort her. While doing this Oscar-worthy performance, Pretending to cry, she blatantly lied about me, claiming that I yelled at her, while she was just there to hand me some files. She continued to get sympathy everywhere from her little pro-feminist group. But among all the women there, one nerdy girl wasn't dumb enough to fall for her performance. Meanwhile, I was just quietly doing my work in my office space, although my mind kept coming back to it over and over again. He had finally returned. Initially, I used to be afraid that once I returned to the office, I would feel bad just by seeing her. But honestly, I didn't feel intimidated at all. In fact, I didn't feel a twinge. Suddenly, my coworker sneaked up from behind, wanting to talk about something. Once we were on the rooftop, he hugged me out of the blue, while the others were congratulating me for some reason I didn't understand. When I asked Sanji what the hell was going on, he finally blurted out the soup. It turns out that excerpt had skyrocketed in value, climbing another 70% in just 2 days. The moment I heard that, I went into deep contemplation, making mental calculations about how much I had just earned from the raise. It turned out that my excerpt investments alone had exploded to a whopping 100 billion, a number that had me sweating my balls off in pure amazement. Meanwhile, my coworkers were just celebrating after making a few million, which was basically small change compared to mine. They started nagging me about how much I had invested in excerpt. He was hesitant to lie, but telling the truth might have blown them away. So I casually said that I had invested 10 billion in each coin. Of course, they were surprised to hear such a large number, although that was barely 20% of my actual investments. With 10 billion invested, they thought my profit must have been around 7 billion. Then they started asking if they should keep or sell. But because I didn't want to be responsible, I told them to make their own decision. You see, I felt that this sudden increase in excerpt was a little suspicious. For a currency that was originally designed to speed up banking transactions, it didn't make much sense for it to skyrocket out of nowhere. The only explanation I could think of was that greed was sweeping the cryptocurrency market more than anyone expected. 2 straight days of non-stop gains usually mean that something big is coming. When they asked what I was planning to do, I simply told them that I had no intention of selling yet. While my coworker thought I might be getting greedy, I thought that with everyone acting greedy, another raise was inevitable. That day, the news quickly spread throughout the company that I had become rich with cryptocurrencies. The eye-catching story of someone getting rich at a young age was enough to grab everyone's attention. Soon, my name was being mentioned in every conversation. While everyone was talking about how I had gotten rich, and even helped others earn a little too, my ex-wife bitch was listening to it all, and as expected, she was completely devastated, so much so that she threw her coffee at floor, getting everyone's attention. Cut to her settled inside a cafe. His presence alone stood out, catching the gaze of everyone around him. Some even mistook her for a model, although the interesting thing was that she seemed a little upset. It turns out that she was invited by John Japp, who wanted to talk to her about me. Since he was not in the mood, he told her to stop fooling around and get to the point. John Japp respected his frankness and asked him what he thought about the rumors that were circulating about me. They said he was addicted to gambling and used to abuse my ex-wife. Surprisingly, Suba did not agree with everything he said. I knew it was just malicious gossip that was intentionally spread. June Jack seemed satisfied with his answer and went for another question. Did he like it? That was the one she really wanted me to answer, and it made her blush instantly. He quickly tried to put me on the friend zone, but June Japp was persistent. I knew there was more than just a friendship. Out of the blue, he suggested coming clean. Of course, that was easier said than done, and she could barely hide her embarrassment. Meanwhile, I was busy dealing with my clingy coworkers, who were showering me with forced congratulations on my cryptocurrency winnings. Even though it was about me, I was the only one who didn't enjoy it. My coworkers were delighted after taking my previous suggestions and winning to the grade of themselves. Honestly, I was surprised to see how many people had already joined the market after hearing the rumors. And surprisingly, his decision was not wrong. Actually, They had got it right with the prices almost doubling in days. Because of that, I was getting too much unwanted attention and affection. They were convinced that I should be sitting on more than 10 billion, one of my initial investment of 2 billion. But the truth was far beyond what they imagined. My assets had skyrocketed to 578 billion. So 1,000 on that, that's enough money to buy an entire company if I wanted to. I always knew that Excerpt and Ethereum had potential, but I never predicted that they would explode like this. By now, even the pretty girls at the office were asking me to teach them about cryptocurrencies and give them sound investment tips. But I was already skeptical of the sudden increase in the prices of Excerpt and Ethereum, so I did not recommend that they invest. When something goes up too fast, it also falls that fast. The girls were getting impressed after listening to everything I had, but the only person who wasn't enjoying the attention I was getting was my ex-wife. I had started to feel jealous that I was the one getting everyone's attention. For a guy she once saw as nothing more than a pitiful fool, it was too much for her. If only he had been this rich before, he wouldn't have dared to divorce me. At that moment, he had no choice but to play his trump card. Meanwhile, in the company group chat, everyone was talking about my wealth as usual. The chat had become more of a Telegram-style cryptocurrency channel, filled with nerdy conversations about coins. Not that I cared. At least everyone was having fun, and no one had had any losses yet. Only then did I receive a message from someone familiar that made me hesitate. Of course, it was Anchivan. Being the manipulative bitch she was, she tried to sugarcoat our divorce and wanted to get close to me again. He pretended to sympathize with my poor upbringing and being an orphan. To reconcile and heal things between us, he suggested to meet. But I knew exactly what he was trying to do, and I wasn't going to play along with him anymore. Just as I was about to block her number, I got a call from Swa. I did not expect it at all and quickly replied. She seemed surprised by how quickly I answered, so I had to explain that I was just playing with my phone. Still, I was curious to know why he called me. He didn't reveal much, he just said he was checking in. As we were catching up, the conversation started to flow naturally. He asked if I had any plans for the holiday tomorrow. Well, there wasn't much to do, except that I was planning to go to the department store to buy some new furniture. Taking advantage of the moment, he asked if he could join me, which honestly surprised me. He stayed silent until I gave my answer, clearly expecting the worst. But when I agreed, she lit up like a little girl. And after the call ended, I was so happy, literally so happy, and embarrassed at the same time. Son Jack's words suddenly echoed in his head, the same ones that could seal his fate with me. I wasn't sure if I had the courage to confess, but I was hoping to do my best. When she arrived the next day, he was already there waiting for her. I guess it's my fault for showing up too early. When I was about to go to a nearby cafe, Swa showed up just in time, which meant that she arrived early too. He looked unusually happy that day and started calling me Appa instead of the usual honorifics. I guess, since we were off work, it was fine. Although I had no idea of his true intentions, he blushed just by looking at me. With that, we entered the store together. Let's not forget my ex-wife who had been waiting for me to arrive. As we walked through the crowded hallways, Swa seemed lost in her thoughts, realizing that this was the first time she had met with me in private. Maybe the way we were shopping and laughing together could even be called a date, a thought that made her blush even more. Meanwhile, I was completely oblivious and focused on finding the best furniture I could. Even she noticed my excitement. I mean, why wouldn't he be? After all, when I lived in that semi-basement, all I had were old, thick blankets. Just feel the comfort of these favorite fabrics. Premium made me excited. After spending almost 2 million on 3 sets of blankets, I bought a cordless vacuum cleaner. Then came the turn of the last fridge, and then the washing machine, and, of course, also a couple of sofas. In the end, I had bought everything I wanted. The total cost came to 56,000,001. Really, bro, I was actually having fun shopping. It's fun to shop when you're ultra rich. Even after buying all those fancy things, It barely made a dent in my savings. Having that kind of money honestly feels like having cheat codes in a video game. In the rush of my shopping spree, I completely forgot the girl who accompanied me. I thought he must have been bored just accompanying me, but contrary to what I assumed, he said that he was actually having fun. When she realized that she was having such a good time with me, she was reminded of June Jock's suggestion to finally confess. By now, she understood that she couldn't keep hesitating forever, so after gathering some courage, she turned to me. Only to be interrupted by me like an idiot. My asshole didn't even realize she was about to confess, and interrupted her in the middle of the moment. He let it go, and told me to get on with what I wanted to say. But when he insisted that his question was not urgent, I started talking, only to be interrupted by another thought. Let's not forget my ex, absolutely losing his mind after I left her at the scene. The fact that I didn't even bother to show up was driving her crazy. The next day, as usual, my co-workers were celebrating their extra winnings. By this point, the entire company had become addicted to cryptocurrencies with me as their guru. Our suggester, Nazen Guk, who once called cryptocurrencies gambling, finally tried his first profit, and lost his mind because of it. He is the living definition of if I am not part of corruption, then it is bad. In the 2 months that followed, Ethereum tripled, and Excerpt increased tenfold. These huge profits made even the most righteous people greedy. People always think that once they win big, they will stop being greedy, but the reality is the opposite. Once you take the bait of easy money, you have already fallen into the trap. That's when your morals and principles start to fade, and you start making one reckless move after another. The next thing you expect after that is always the catastrophe. I may have been a whale in the pond, less likely to take the bait and hook up, but I wasn't immune to it either. I still remember my father's advice. Just because you have an advantage in the game doesn't mean you're going to win. Victory only counts once you get up from the poker table with chips in your hand. In the company chat, 2 names kept appearing in every message. Mine and X. ARP. The suggester, Na Songguk, was reading every text, boiling with envy. I thought I didn't deserve the accolades, that it was just dumb luck that made me rich. I thought he knew more than me. His confidence came from the 1,000 he earned in a month. He was convinced that his luck would keep rolling, that he would soon buy a condo in Riverside and a sports car. And then all that would be left would be to confess his love to someone like Sue. At that time, I announced in the group chat that I was going to sell both my Excerpt and Ethereum. Some co-workers couldn't believe my sudden decision. Nissan Walk, on the other hand, thought I was crazy to sell at a time like that. He believed that he was smarter than me, and even tried to convince others otherwise. As far as he was concerned, I was the reckless one of the group. Still, I laid out my reasoning calmly. The market had risen too fast, and a correction was inevitable. Of course, I couldn't change everyone's opinion, so I closed the chat with one last message. The next day, I met with the team leader, and Myongguk. The team leader and asked me to move to another place. This guy took me to the rooftop, and he couldn't stop patting me on the back with heavy blows. My boss was proud of my cryptocurrency investment advice. I started to open a letter and asked for a 2-week vacation notice. For some reason, the leader was not prepared and thought that he was handing in a resignation. His face was priceless, questioning why the hell a rich guy like me wouldn't quit a crappy job. Remembering my conversation with Swa, I had told her about my plans to visit the United States. The thing is, I was lacking experience and knowledge, and I needed to fix that fast. Strangely, Swa's words couldn't get out of her mouth. Supposedly he forgot what he wanted to say, and just wished me a good trip. The team leader Anna easily tested my holiday notice, but I was in a difficult situation, and sought her advice. You see, I was a poor bitch with no career, no talent, no remarkable aspirations. I have all this money, envying those who spent their whole life in their dreams. It was here that my boss criticized my thoughts, and directly called them bullshit. I was surprised to see this side of him. He told me about his childhood dream of becoming a goal-scoring player. The leader practiced so much that his hands were peeling off the skin and still kept going. She knew she was happy to pursue her dream, but then one day her worldview was shattered. The poor guy discovered the immense fees that his parents had to cover just to finance his dream. Despite everything, and had to make the difficult decision to kill her dream, and ended up in an office. His new dream is to live with his family and just watch a casual baseball game. Assuring me with his wisdom, he emphasized that life is full of opportunities to pursue and that dreams should not be an obsession. All this time, I had been quietly listening to his advice, and I felt moved. My thoughts became clearer, allowing me to take one step at a time and pursue life slowly. Finally, my nosy boss came over, stealthily to me, and decided to tackle the elephant in the room. How much money did I earn? I started talking vaguely, asking about the price of an average apartment in Gangnam-go. The answer was 2,000 at the time, and using that number as a reference, I whispered the money I won in his ear. It's safe to say that this man's jaw dropped in shock, questioning reality. A part of him was really a part of me because I was walking away not only as an office worker, but as a man who had officially entered the domain of bugs. Millions. Shortly after this conversation, I packed my things and left for the airport. Immediately, I noticed a premium deal in first class and remembered how shitty it is to fly in economy. I hummed and lay back happily until a voice to my right caught my attention. This woman was on a call, so I greeted her after we looked into each other's eyes. She cut off her call to apologize to me. Curious to use this as a business opportunity, the woman handed me her personal business card. She was Jin Yujong, CEO, and a brilliant success story for her age. While reading the details of his card, I introduced myself as a simple sales representative of a pharmaceutical company. I could see his face crack in shock, questioning how an average me like me was here flying first class. I kept saying that she mainly works in investments these days, but honestly, fuck her. There was a beautiful and appetizing steak in front of me, stealing all my attention. I got down to business, taking a bite, and got a jolt of how juicy each bite was. I was finally starting to understand what it really felt like in first class. Meanwhile, Yu Hyung was watching me carefully. I had already guessed that it was my first time sitting in first class. Coincidentally, we looked into each other's eyes, and I complimented her on her elegant posture. Describing how natural the knife looked in her hand, I made her blush and turn around. He was very happy to receive such compliments. Shortly after, Yu Hyung showed me his company's new car advertisement concept. I was absolutely amazed because this model is supposed to be aimed at the American market. Out of the blue, he asked me about my current vehicle of choice. Although I am a humble guy, I casually decided to flex my possession of a Ferrari. The woman froze in shock and told me that they were working on sports models and even electric vehicles. Actually, I plugged in my experience of driving an electric car Mira, and at a certain point in my life, I could see her face light up ready to listen. Hearing about the experience until I annihilated this woman by criticizing the accelerator and brake system of the car. Although I was honestly remembering my experience, Julian was here losing it. At the same time, I realized how much I had changed. Before, I didn't even have the guts to talk. Fuck a woman of her caliber. Deciding to take a look at her interests, I learned that Julian had a passion for cars since childhood. He was an enthusiast who drove dozens of different cars. Curious, I asked about the details. His recent experience involved driving a Mini. He loved it for its beautiful design. I could finally see his face light up again. The flight resumed, and we were about to land at the San Francisco airport. Yu Hyun talked about all the palaver for the rest of the flight, talking about company details and market difficulties. She killed my mood and interest at that moment. It was torture to sit next to a chatterbox. Finally, we landed. He offered me a handshake and hoped to reconnect in Korea. I had finally escaped the tortuous flight after enduring his chatter for hours, even regretting that I had bothered to talk. Leaving the airport, I welcomed the diverse experience in San Francisco. My dream of coming to the United States had come true. The person who was welcoming me shouted my name. "It's me and Wu, my old friend. We shared a semi-basement at the university, and we spent the moments more. Make it difficult. He was my partner until he got lucky and got an amazing role in a company here. I couldn't help but notice her plump face and swollen belly. He went from a skinny man to a bowling ball. My annual offered to eat, but instead of taking me to a restaurant, this man introduced me. The best meals in America, a hamburger. While all this was going on, my shitty ex-wife was suffering in silence for ignoring her all this time. Juan shared a table with her friends, sharing how angry she felt about my trip to the United States. He even invented a gambling addiction out of thin air, and called me a violent man, cheat, and even scum. Chaiwan didn't know she was about to get a lesson from the meanest bitch in the neighborhood. This woman humiliated her, reminding her that since they are separated now, he should not bother her. The team leader, Choi Soe, finished of listening to her speech and kept silent all this time. But watching this woman constantly talk shit about me was shocking to her, especially when everyone knew that I acted differently from her stories. My ex-wife got a lesson from Zoe, who directly and frankly called it an act of jealousy. My ex-wife couldn't stand the heat and got up, complaining about her team leader's harsh words as he walked away. In the bathroom, my psychotic ex-wife muttered her frustrations about Zoe and venting all her anger. Chebin realized that no one was buying his bullshit story. But interestingly, this crazy woman had also started investing in cryptocurrencies and was planning to silence everyone with her wealth. The next day, that guy who was a keyboard warrior against me in the group chat started bragging about his 10% return on his investment. He nicknamed me an impatient guy and told others to invest in the best opportunity. The funny thing is that even my coworkers were able to notice his egomaniacal behavior. The team leader, Ann, found himself immersed in the idea of investing, regretting that he had not been bold sooner. His mind was consumed by the idea of women. While my boss was having a dilemma, his friend casually admitted to having sold his entire amount, trusting my instinct. The reality is that currencies were meant to go up and down, but it took real courage to sell a rising currency, knowing when to quit. The moment he read my message about selling all my coins, he knew what to do. Back in the States, I'm here enjoying a game of burgers and experiencing real joy. Me and Wu wanted to take care of me during my visit, not knowing that I had earned more money than NBA players by this time. Moon Wu was attracted by a voice coming from two Americans. They called him Khan, which seemed like a strange name to me. Chris and Elena are his new friends in America. Sharing a table with him, they sang praises of his work with the dynamic control model. Intrigued, I immediately asked him about it and learned that it is actually a software for automatic driving. The nerdy guy with glasses, Chris, runs a startup company called Aurora. Elena is similar and also runs a company that focuses on organic products. I knew they were both entrepreneurs, and I couldn't help but ask him about their initial experience. Chris confirmed that although it is a difficult phase, entrepreneurs are people who fought against difficulties to experience the reward. It was no different climbing the top of a mountain to gain its brilliant view. I admired them both. Chris highlighted the exceptional talent of Mew Mew, who was responsible for bringing the brilliant ideas of Silicon Valley to reality. His programming skills are unique despite his addiction to hamburgers. I sat there enjoying the company of amazing people, realizing that it was worth spending my money on the trip. That night, Kent took me to his house. This little place costs a fortune here. Thanks to San Francisco's competitive landscape, he immediately threw a beer at me and started asking the real questions, wanting to know how I got here. Several cans of beer later, I explained everything to this guy about my divorce. My lifelong friend was very happy to hear that Chuan was out of my life. He was truly happy that he found salvation in cryptocurrencies. Many people in the United States had a similar fortune, and I learned that some of them even created their own currency. This was a novel idea for me that took me by surprise, but it made sense due to the influence of Bitcoin. Inspired by the act of creation, I threw a powerful idea in Myong's face, the desire to start a new company. My friend thought I had had too many beers and couldn't think straight, but I was serious and inspired by the approach of entrepreneurs. Being my best friend, Me and Wu talked about three crucial factors when starting a company. The first one revolved around securing capital. The second was the big idea, and the most important of all was the qualities of the CEO. Despite having perfect capital and perfect ideas, none of that mattered a damn if the CEO was a fucking monkey. Capital is also important, but it was not enough. That's what I learned, which made me wonder what kind of person I needed to become. To make my vision a reality, I started thinking about a dozen different qualities. My friend argued that startups were much more difficult than investments and advised me not to pursue the idea, but he wasn't finished. And I asked about the specifics of investing in a company. The next day, I sat in front of Kurz expressing a great interest in investing in his company. For some reason, I didn't expect this conversation to happen at the burger joint. To impress this guy, I pulled out my fancy research I did on Aurora, his company. I noticed the upward trend and the interest of Korean conglomerates in your company. This meant that Kress's company was about to soar very high. Kress didn't seem interested until I surprised him with another important piece of information about his battle against an investment firm. It offered the savvy entrepreneur a piece of real value, expressing a keen interest in a partnership rather than a mere investment. In fact, he was willing to invest $500,000 only for 10% of the capital as a partner. Upon hearing my proposal, Chris decided to review the documents. He countered with an offer of 700,000 pesos, much more than my proposed offer. Even my friend criticized him for his outrageous and sudden increase, but I had a better idea. I countered with the staggering amount of 900,000 pesos for 20% instead, surprising Kress. Me and Wu described the plight of Kress, who is currently facing huge problems in dealing with her investment company, and is also running out of capital. My friend emphasized how he would eliminate all that risk for Kress, and in exchange for some capital, he will never meddle with Aurora's goals. The fate of Myung Woo decided to share an analogy of eating a hamburger versus eating a double cheeseburger. The salivating idea tempted Kress, and eventually it came to pass, striking a successful deal with me. By officially becoming a partner at Aurora, I was really happy after that meeting. Even if my investment failed, I would end up with a great experience to learn. Again, I just had to thank me and Woo's ugly face, as this guy is the only one responsible for backing me up. As a good friend, I wanted to repay him for his help one day. Seeking his advice, I asked him to recommend more companies to me so that I could enjoy investing more. Although I came here on vacation, I couldn't help but wonder how my friends were at the office. The news of my agreement with Aurora was made public, and all other investment proposals were rejected, even those of Jujian's company. Along with Aurora, Medwave also rejected them in exchange for an individual. At this point, Julian couldn't understand what was going on. The idea of one guy investing in multiple startups by stealing company-level deals left her flabbergasted. It was a loss on both sides for Yuk Yang's company, which made him understand that they were not dealing with just any guy. Instead, he wanted every last bit of information about me so he could steal those shares. Despite his astute experience in his industry, he did not take into account my sudden movements. Yu Hyun was determined to find me no matter what, and then she started. The same flourishing rise of the cryptocurrency of the Ten Bull Empire began to fall. And each of my colleagues confronted the sewer rat keyboard warrior who lives on Reddit for his betrayal. They trusted him and lost 20 million wons immediately. Perhaps the sweetest justice came to my shitty ex-wife, Chevy, that he had lost everything to. Taking a turn, the bastard acted like they were the idiots for trusting him. Not that I was pointing a gun at them to get them to invest, but trust me, it's the shittiest response imaginable. And my co-workers had every right to be angry. In the midst of the confusion, people began to realize why trusting my advice was so crucial back then. If they had, they would have at least secured a principal. My co-workers were wondering what I was doing at this point. To be honest, I was in a life and death situation. With a gun in my hand, I mercilessly shot down my targets. My partner, Nyan Wu, was by my side until I saw his body on the ground. He was finished. And while I was distracted, someone shot me in the back, ending my life. The player then pulled out a melee weapon, but it was nothing more than a stupid frying pan. The guy thought he was in Pug and started crushing our heads, humiliating us in the game. The reality is that we were just playing an online game, and we couldn't get a chicken dinner. Our obsession for a rematch led us to another game. Remember when I talked about paying my friend here? Well, as his friend, I got this man a huge new house. However, me and Wu didn't like the idea of receiving a gift very much. The guy flatly refused everything until he saw this magnificent gaming PC casually resting in the house. There were all kinds of consoles. It was the kind of place you might consider a man's ultimate dream. We both agreed to move in together. During our gaming session, I told him about my interest in going backpacking. I came here for 2 weeks, but I asked the team leader to extend my stay. Suddenly, an idea popped into this man's mind while he was asking me for a favor. At first, I thought he wanted to join, but it seemed he had different plans. So we left, boarding a bus while a beautiful blonde lady slept on my shoulder. I just wanted a simple trip, but this lady made things uncomfortable. You see, my asshole best friend actually wanted her to join. She's supposedly an acquaintance of his, and although I didn't really mind her joining, I wanted to know more about her. It turns out that the girl is just a simple graduate, and that's how I got stranded with her on the bus. In fact, I was so lost in my nightmare that I couldn't even hear her scream my name. She roared with excitement because we had finally arrived in Los Angeles. The stunning young woman paralyzed everyone with her appearance. We had both come here for the first time, but it seemed that she was much more excited than I was. She wasn't even feeling a little worried, come to think of it. She's going on a trip with some random guy, and she's not afraid of anything in the world. His behavior informed me that I still had to learn about the culture. While I was busy thinking about shit in my head, she got cranky for ignoring her. I apologized and asked him to try again. It turns out that she has a schedule that we can follow throughout the trip. It was a convenient idea for me to relax, so I just followed his example. She and I started exploring everything we could get our hands on, including the Universal Company headquarters. At sunset, I made my memories with her a physical form while crawling for a photo shoot. Enjoying the beautiful sunset, we toast on behalf of our trip. She thought I was exhausted from following her lead, but I actually had a lot of fun exploring things with her. I wouldn't have even explored law like that without her, so I felt grateful. In an effort to learn more about me, he asked me about my interest in coming to the United States. I kept it simple and told him I was curious about a different culture. Then I asked him the same question. It turns out that the recent graduate wanted to breathe fresh air before starting her professional career. The brilliant young woman secured a job on Wall Street and knew her life was going to get busy. I was speechless after hearing his achievement. Her biggest dream is to secure a great trade deal in her sector for the world to remember. Pouring us a drink, I offered a second toast to wish him the best in his endeavors. I also included the success of my own ambitions. We both thought that one day we would cross paths and do business together one day. At night, we secured a hostel room to stay. Fortunately and surprisingly, our room had no one but us. She sat on her bed, looking like a 5-star meal, and told me how great it was that we were alone. To say that he was aroused is an understatement, and I quickly told him not to make such jokes. He stopped teasing, and soon after, we both fell asleep. But restless as he was, he couldn't sleep at all. The way it casually involved us having sex was not on my bingo cards. My virgin ass almost couldn't refuse his offer, but doing so would have given Mungu a bad name. That's how I realized I had to be careful with my third leg from now on. The next night, we spent time enjoying ourselves as best we could. As beautiful as she looked, she came in a sexy smoking bathing suit. Leaning over me, he jokingly suggested that we head out for a little swim. I begged the gods of cryptocurrencies to give me strength. In the pool, she dived so gracefully, while I chickened out and watched her come out. Looking wet and shiny, she looked more beautiful than ever. I told her I wasn't very good at swimming, but she saw this as an opportunity to drag me into the water. She wanted to be my tutor, but I was scared shitless. In the end, American culture seemed too easy and open. I wanted to keep some distance and keep our relationship the way it was, so I told her I would leave sooner. Meanwhile, a bunch of clowns arrived to ruin our party. These bigwigs thought they could get an explosive beauty like her. Maybe the scariest part was that there was a guy interested in me. Keep me out of that gay shit. She refused his invitation, but these guys didn't even mind being rejected. Her beautiful personality seemed seductive to one of the clowns, and I was about to touch her when I appeared, grabbed her hand, and told them not to touch her. She was surprised to see me come to her defense. Although I got cocky and defended her quickly, I had no idea what to do next. I mean, it was 3 against 1, and I was going to get beat up. My main priority was to ensure her safety, but to my surprise, it was she who approached them as if it was no big deal. Confronting them, she demanded the losers to leave if they wanted her to forget everything. The punks told her that flirting with someone was not a crime, but it seems that she was prepared. Suddenly, guards appeared out of nowhere, and I do not know what to tell you, but the gay guy among the 3 still seemed excited. The macho-looking massive guys casually told these skinny guys to follow them for harassing women. And that's how they took these guys while I shared a lovely moment over our drinks. The guards even compensated them for their unfortunate situation, a custom similar to that in Korea. It seemed that she was even more interested in me. He wanted to know about my background, about my life. I stared at her before revealing my unfortunate childhood. I lived a shitty and poor life without parents. Just when I started telling her about my failed marriage, she instantly got angry on my behalf and called Chevin a witch for treating me like shit. He thought I was Superman for putting up with my ex-wife's nonsense, and honestly, he might be right. At the same time, she understands why someone became interested in me. He started mapping out my best qualities, highlighting how respectful I was, and that any woman would fall in love with that. His radiant smile made it look like he was hitting on me, so in the end, we decided to call it a night. Resting in the hotel room, I found myself calming down a bit. I would be lying if I said that I didn't think about her beautiful looks and radiant personality during that time. Focusing on hard work, I checked the market and found out about the amazing fall of Expo. The same goes for the rest of the cryptocurrencies. All of them experienced a lot of losses. I considered myself lucky to have sold at the right time. She suddenly came to my door at a strange hour, so I quickly opened to welcome her. I think my brain melted when I saw her silk dress wrapped over her body. I was shorted like any kid would be. I tried to confront her, but she placed a finger on my lip. It was at this moment that I knew I was about to get laid. He shared my bed, asking about the night view of Las Vegas. I thought of it as the most beautiful thing, adding that Santa Monica beach contrasts well with its natural beauty. Provoking me even more, she asked if it was okay to chat with her like this. Of course, this woman looked delicious as hell, but I was singing the Korean anthem to preserve my virginity until the end. He realized that she was trying to evade his attempts and asked why. Grabbing the sheet, I told her about my fears. I had already divorced once, and right now, I am very afraid of losing everything for a moment of pleasure. The idea seemed tempting, but she is a good friend with whom I did not want to complicate things. My explanation really depressed her. As an alternative, he begged me to stay up all night talking about things. I was okay with that. We talked about a lot of different topics before I collapsed. I was still awake, playing with my face, disappointed that I had passed out early. Using this moment as an attempt to get a slice, he pleasantly approached my body. Despite his disappointment at not being able to get into my pants, he settled for a hug at night. The next day, we said goodbye after our amazing trip. She was curious about my plans to return to Korea. I confirmed her assumption and said goodbye to her, but something in her hesitated before overwhelming me with the warmest hug. Pressing his whole body, including his anti-stress balls, he begged me to send him a message when he arrived in Korea. For a moment, I wanted to hug her too, but I hesitated and stopped. I got on the flight and left the airport, remembering the end of my long journey. He had made valuable relationships with the ambitious people of America, people he could never have enjoyed the company of in Korea. Each city was tremendous and different in its own way. It was all driven by chunks of huge capital. Seeing America flourish in such a way ignited a dream inside me. The desire to do more, to take greater risks, to push myself further. Above all, I wanted to earn more money than ever before. It always bothered me because billionaires worked hard even in old age. It's not because they had to, but because making money was the most exciting adventure there was. Finally, I landed at the airport, where my friend greeted me with great joy. Sun Jab did not come alone, but also brought Suba. She greeted me and asked me about my trip, and I just lit up when I saw her. We talked to each other, while Sun Jab probably felt like the best Celestino watching us bounce. Hungry, we decided to have something to eat. Of course, I was going to invite them to a 5-star hotel. All this time, Chaiwon kept sending me messages, but I didn't give a fuck about her. I enjoyed the comfort of my apartment. Despite the amazing view of America, I still felt biased towards the landscape of my place. Finally, I checked the messages of all the people who contacted me. Shi and Yongwoo gave me exciting news, while I was thinking about my future plans to visit the United States more often. Among the messages, I found Chaiwon. She wrote an emotional text acting like I was the one missing out on the deal for going without her. This woman acted like a romantic philosopher, and confessed her feelings of being in love with me. Just reading that message gave me chills. Clearly, this bitch needed an appointment with a therapist. Meanwhile, Chuan was here alone, knowing that he had ghosted her again. That romantic side turned into a threatening one. First, he called me an idiot. Then he gave himself the consolation of having moved on with his life, threatening me that my life at work was going to get complicated. I was afraid of her and blocked her again, feeling once again convinced of my decision to divorce this evil witch. The next day, I came to the office with a lot of memories for my colleagues. To my total surprise, everyone was peeking out in desperation, without a shred of enthusiasm. Some of my colleagues greeted me. Those who followed my advice made profits and withdrew from cryptocurrencies at the right time. That made me realize that the reason these people were acting like zombies was because they lost a lot, thanks to Assistant Nasangu's lousy advice. Experiencing a 95% drop was not easy to handle. Then I saw my team managers who made fun of me for not welcoming them earlier. In the meeting room, I gave them 2 expensive watches, making their own hands shake with amazement. Both were from Rolks, a gesture of my gratitude to the leaders who supported me since my rookie days. The team leader could not bear to receive such a gift. They both thanked me, but wanted to return the watch immediately. I assured them that the price didn't even scratch my wallet, so it was fine for them to take it. That's when I surprisingly discovered the rumors that I was losing my money. Some crazy clown lied to everyone in my office. Reflecting on the identity of this person, I stood on the rooftop. The person in question came. It was the disgusting bastard Sengek, giving me false sympathy for losing my money. I thought her ugly ass just wanted a chance to step on me again. Sun Kok's superiority complex has always been clear from day one. All he cares about is his pride. He is the one who made me miserable in my daily life. He offered his condolences, giving me a shitty smile, and allowing me a space to open up about my supposed losses. Naturally, I deliberately took the bait. First, I acted like I was doing her a favor by revealing everything, begging her to keep everything a secret between us. I could see this bastard's face light up with excitement at the news. Then I surprised him, announcing that despite earning 10 billion from the cryptocurrencies, I barely have 10 million left. Brother became an Oscar-winning actor, offering his condolences to me. I knew this guy had a loud mouth, and I wanted him to spread this fake news even more. Like clockwork, the news went viral. This guy told the gossip to everyone, using the same words I used. People found it difficult to accept this news, since he had just gone to the United States. Most were disappointed in me, while Sanguk, the disgusting cockroach, felt euphoria. He wanted to see me fall. His pride couldn't stand for me to get over it. Brother treated me like a worm that was always going to sit under him, while Sanguk was waiting for his next stage to humiliate me again. A man entered the building inviting everyone to a sudden company dinner. Sangak opted out before hearing that the dinner would include a high-end steak restaurant. His mouth was salivating, and the next thing he knew he and the others were welcomed to the premium restaurant. My colleagues were dumbfounded, wondering how one could afford an expensive place like this. Silly as Sangog was, I knew it wasn't a place one could afford, unless it was a meeting between directors. That made him wonder if the company's CEO was planning to show up. To his surprise, Sangak saw me arrive at the same place. I couldn't stand the fact that he was enjoying my time with the team bosses, and even planned to humiliate me in front of everyone. First of all, I stole everyone's attention by welcoming them. With the stage set, I told my friends that I wanted to thank them with a proper dinner after my return, allowing them complete freedom to eat as much as they could. The reality of Saint Gog was shattered into a billion pieces. I had expertly manipulated him by acting as if I had lost my entire fortune, and then I made this move to break his mind even more. The rest of the people started discussing the same thing, knowing that I could never have organized such a luxurious dinner if I was broke. Instead, they blamed Saint Gog for the false information. His pride was hurt again, so he got up in anger. Both team leaders supported me, assuring Sangak that he could never have lost such a fortune. But they were deeply disgusted by his behavior in disclosing information confidential, spreading the news of his death. I caught the rat right where I wanted. Coming out of the shadows, I confronted him and allowed Sandwalk to enjoy the meat. My old self would have ignored his nonsense because the rumors this man spread about me weren't too far from reality. But there was no way I was going to tolerate that behavior anymore. Feeding him with sweet poison with my words, I assured Sangak that this dinner was prepared especially for him. Where I am right now, no one is going to step on me anymore.